Today we'll be looking at a solution to the post-practice problem from CTF Learn. So, let's read the description. This website requires authentication via post. However, it seems as if someone has defaced our site. Maybe there is still some way to authenticate. And we get a link. So let's just go to this link without doing anything fancy. I'm just going to copy that link and I'm going to paste it in a new tab. This site takes post data that you have not submitted. So, what does post data mean? To figure that out, you have to use Google, but in this case, I'll just give a quick explanation. So, post is a type of network request for sending data to or updating data on a server. Usually, when you go to a website, for example, you'll be using a GET request, and that is usually just for getting content without the user uploading anything at all. There's other types of requests like PUT, which is also somewhat common, but a lot of people use POST for the same purpose, which is adding information to or uploading information to a server. And there are tons of other request types. There's patch, options, many more, but you'll probably not need to use them. You can identify when a POST request has been made by checking developer tools in Chrome, and they're often used for this kind of submitting data, login, upload. And whenever you need to basically have the client side, which is the browser, send data to the server side, which is whatever website or link or URL you're using, you're going to need a POST request. So let's look at what we have in this page. Right off the bat, we see in the HTML that there's a comment that immediately gives us access to the username and password of what we need to submit to get our flag. But how exactly do we send these username and password to the server? Because if we refresh the page, we'll see that the browser is making a GET request. We need to make a POST request, which is what the problem said. So we have a variety of ways of making POST requests. There are a ton of different frameworks, libraries, tools, programming languages. They all offer some sort of way to make a POST request. Even your browser can make POST requests through JavaScript, so that's what I'll be using, just to make things simpler. But as you can see, it's very often not much code at all, and you can make a POST request to whatever domain, whatever link you want. So in this case, we'll be using the JavaScript variant, but you may prefer using the Bash variant. And just to give a quick explanation of how each of these work, you're sending a request to a URL, just as in GET, but you also have something called a body, and that allows you to add whatever data you want. And that data is why, the ability to add that data is why people use POST requests. A GET request doesn't allow you to send data. I mean, of course, you can encode the data in the URL, but it's often better to use a POST request if you have a large amount of data to send, like an image upload. Over here in the curl command, you'll see that there's a little bit of extra stuff we need to do. We have to have key equals value and key2 equals value 2. You may recognize this. At the ends of URLs sometimes you'll see question mark A equals B and C equals D. That's the same kind of deal. That's called www form URL encoded. It allows you to easily send data to a server. It's basically just a serialization technique, and that just means converting a complex object, such as a key value mapping, into something that can be represented as a string, or just characters. And basically on most modern sites, you'll be using this content type, which is form URL encoded, but sometimes you may have other types like JSON. In this case, it is just URL encoded, and for the most part, you're going to want to start off with that. So we can go back to this page, and since I'm going to be using JavaScript, we can go take a look at the snippet that was there for the JavaScript again. We have a form data object, and we append keys and values, and then we just call this function fetch to the URL with the method post, and with the body being the form data object we created, and then we just log our response text. So we can do something similar to that. I'm going to create a new form data object, And now I'm going to add the keys and values we need. So if we look back to the elements page, this is where we got our username and password. So I'm just going to copy over that into the JavaScript so I don't have to keep switching panes. And now I'm going to append the username, which I've already done, and the password, which I've also already done. And now it's as simple as making a fetch request to this current link, which is post.php, with the method post, and including the body form data. So now you'll see that returned, we didn't get what we wanted because we didn't have all this extra boilerplate. But if we look at the network tab, we'll see that this request was made with method post. It gave us an OK response. In the form data, we correctly sent the username and password that was given to us in the HTML. And in our response, we have the flag. So that's how you solve the post-practice problem on CTF Learn.